So we're going to talk about solving inequalities. So let's look at this first part. It says 4 is less than 6. I'm going to multiply both sides by a -2. So I haven't fully multiplied out yet, so this still remains a less than sign. The next step, I've multiplied my 4 by a -2, and I've multiplied my 6 by a -2. So that means whenever I multiply by a negative number, I flip my sign. So instead of having a less than sign, I'm now going to have a greater than sign. So when I multiply by a negative, I flip my sign. Okay. Now over on that right-hand side, we're dividing by a negative. So just like before, I have my 4 is less than 6. This time I'm dividing by -2 instead of multiplying by -2. I still haven't simplified, so I'm still a less than sign here. The next part I've simplified. I've divided my 4 by a -2 and I've divided my 6 by a -2. Just like when I'm multiplying by a negative number, I flipped my sign. When I'm dividing by a negative, I also flip my sign. So now I have a greater than sign. Okay? So the two things to take away, when you multiply by a negative value and when you divide by a negative value, you flip the sign. So next we're going to start some examples, and we're also going to go over graphing our inequality solutions. So if I look at example 1, it says I have 62 minus 18x is less than positive 20. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get that x by itself. I have a 62 attached in the front. I'm going to do the opposite of my positive, which would be subtracting 62. And whatever I do to one side, I still have to do to both sides. On that left-hand side, my 62's cancel out. I'm left with a negative 18x. I still keep my less than sign. And now over here, I have a negative 42. Let's keep going. I now have negative 18 times x. The inverse of my multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 18. On my left-hand side, my negative 18s divide out. I'm just left with x. I did divide by a negative, so I flipped my sign. It's no longer less than, it's now greater than. And then I just have to simplify. So my negative divided by a negative is going to give me a positive answer. And this is going to be a positive 7/3. So you can also plug this into your calculator and get a decimal. In decimal form, this will be written as x is greater than 2.3, repeating. Now when I graph this, so we're going to move over to the number line next. Since I don't have that equal to line under my less than sign, I'm going to start with an open circle instead of a closed circle. So I'm just going to find my place near 2.3 repeating, so it's somewhere over here. Put an open circle, and we said x is greater than 2.3 repeating, so it's everything bigger than that value. So that means my arrow points to the right. One problem down, a few more to go. So let's look at example 2. So in example 2, I have 2 parentheses, x minus 1 is greater than 7 parentheses, x plus 4, okay? So the first thing I have to do is I have to distribute the 2 to my x minus 1 and the 7 to the x plus 4. So 2 goes to x, 2 goes to negative 1. On the left-hand side, I get 2x minus 2. I still keep my greater than sign. My 7 goes to x and my 7 goes to positive 4. I get 7x plus 28. So now I have 2x minus 2 is greater than 7x plus 28. Just like before, I'm trying to get the x's on one side and get x by itself. So we're going to start by adding 2 to both sides. So now on the left-hand side, I have 2x is greater than 7x plus 30. Next, I'm going to get my x's on one side. So I have this 7x on my right-hand side. I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. Remember, my 7 was positive, my 7x was positive, so the opposite would be negative. So now, on the left-hand side, I get negative 5x. I still keep my greater than sign, and I'm just left with that positive 30. Ran out of room, sorry. I ran out of room, so I'm going to rewrite it up here. So I'm still trying to get x by itself. Last thing I have to do is just divide both sides by a negative 5. Since I divided by a negative value, my sign flips, so it's no longer greater than, it's now less than, and 30 divided by a negative 5 is going to give me a negative 6. Just like before, I don't have that equal to with my less than, so that means I'm open once again. This time at negative 6, I'm going to find my negative 6, put an open circle over it, and then this is that x is less than negative 6, so it's everything smaller than my negative 6. That means when I graph it, I'm headed to the left. So whenever I'm trying to figure out which direction my graph should go, I can always look at my signs. So my less than pointed to the left, so if my x was less than negative 6, it points to the left. My x was greater than 2.3 repeating, so it went to the right, just like my greater than sign points to the right. Now we've done 2 examples. I'm going to go ahead and move on, do some more examples before you get to start on your lovely homework. So let's look at this next section. So this time, I can see I have my equal to signs with my less than. I have negative 3x plus 8 is less than or equal to positive 14. Once again, I'm just trying to get that x by itself. So the first thing I have to do is get rid of that positive 8. That means I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. On the left-hand side, my negative and my positive 8 will cancel one another out. And then 14 plus a negative 8 is going to give me a positive 6. So that means I have negative 3x is still less than or equal to positive 6. Almost done. Just have that negative 3 attached to my x that I'm trying to get by itself. So the opposite of my multiplication would be division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. Now, since I am dividing by a negative value, that means I flip my sign. So over here, my negative 3's divide out. I'm just left with x. Instead of a less than or equal to, I now have a greater than or equal to. And then 6 divided by a negative 3 is negative 2. So unlike before where we just had a less than sign or a greater than sign, this time I now have a greater than or equal to sign. Since I have that equal to, that means the circle on my graph is going to be closed. So I find my starting number of a negative 2. I'm just going to draw a closed circle. My inequality solution says that x is greater than or equal to negative 2. So just like earlier, I'm going to follow the way that my sign points, so it's everything bigger than negative 2. That means that my graph looks something like this. And this tells me that everything is bigger than or equal to negative 2. So remember, if I have my equal to sign, I have my closed circle. If I don't have my equal to sign, I'm an open circle. We have one more to go in your lovely examples. And then you get a homework assignment. Should have seen it coming, right? So now, my next example has 5 parentheses x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 4 parentheses 2x plus 6 minus 2. The first thing I have to take care of my distribution. So I have to multiply my 5 to my x plus 2, and I have to multiply my 4 to my 2x plus 6. So let's go ahead and start there. So 5 goes to x, and 5 goes to positive 2. That gives me a 5x plus 10. Haven't multiplied or divided by a negative yet, so I keep my greater than or equal to sign. Next, I'm going to have 4 times 2x, and my 4 goes to my positive 6. So I get 8x. 4 times 6 would give me a positive 24. And that last part, I just bring over my minus 2. Let's keep going. Now we slowly got to start simplifying. So on my right-hand side, I can combine my positive 24 and my negative 2 first. So I'm not messing with the left-hand side, so I'm just going to rewrite it. Still have a greater than or equal to sign. I didn't mess with my 8x. Now I need 24 minus 2. So that gets me a positive 22. Now we have 5x plus 10 is greater than or equal to 8x plus 22. Still trying to get my x's by themselves. So we're going to move my numbers over. We're going to start by moving this positive 10. Opposite of my positive 10 is my negative 10. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. When I do this, my positive and negative 10 cancel one another out. I'm now left with 5x greater than or equal to 8x plus 12. Almost there, getting closer and closer. I still got to move that 8x over and get x all the way by itself. So my opposite of my positive 8x is a negative 8x. That means I'm going to subtract 8x from both sides. When I do this, my positive 8x and my negative 8x cancel out. 5x minus 3x, whoops, sorry, 5x minus 8x gives me a negative 3x. I haven't divided or multiplied by a negative number yet, so I still have a greater than or equal to sign. And then on the right-hand side, I'm just left with a positive 12. Almost done. X is almost by itself. It has that negative 3 attached to it. I'm negative 3 times x. My inverse or my opposite operation is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. I am dividing by a negative value. That means I flip my sign. So on this side, my negative 3's divide out. I'm just left with x. I did divide by a negative value, like we said before, so I flipped my sign. I'm no longer greater than. I am now less than or equal to. 12 divided by negative 3 gets me a negative 4. So my solution to this problem is x is less than or equal to negative 4. Now all I got to do is graph it. So I'm going to look at my graph and find my negative 4. Since I am equal to, I get a closed circle on my negative 4. Now x is less than or equal to negative 4, so it's everything smaller than negative 4. I follow the way that my sign points. So that means my graph should look something like that. That's all for our lovely examples. So now to talk about your homework assignment. Don't worry, you don't have to do every question that's written on that piece of paper that you're probably looking at right now. So looking at your homework assignment, I want you to do number 1. Let's see. Number 4 looks daunting, I know, but I know you can do it. Okay. Let's go with 6. And then I know you can't see it at the bottom because the rest of this page does not fit on my screen. Let's also toss in number 8.